speech today will be about my life between Kiribati and New Zealand. As you all know, I am from the island you might know as the Sinking Island, but I know it as the beautiful Kiribati. First of all, I will start by saying how grateful I am to be in New Zealand. It has been a real pleasure to live in a country that you're not used to. Well, what I'm not used to. My family and I came to New Zealand in 2010. I was 6 years old at the time. Even though I was young, I still remember a feeling of being away from my island. The sad, lost, and draining feeling I experienced as I stepped on the soils of Aotearoa. The thought of never seeing and feeling the warm sand of my beautiful island for a while had left me with an upset stomach, till to this day. I mentioned before that I was not used to all of this. By all of this, I mean by waking up in the afternoon and eating on the table while watching television at the same time. Or getting in the car and driving off to the shops just to buy some toilet paper. And many more things. But if I were to list them all down, you would be sitting here for hours and get bored of me talking and talking and talking and talking. All these new things happening around to me were such a cultural shock, as I was not used to waking up and watching TV. Instead, I would be waking up with a stick in the early morning to go and help my siblings right outside our house and hang the washing. And when going to the shops, we use our feet since the shops are only 5 seconds away from us. Before moving to New Zealand, I was not aware of the many changes and differences there would be or take place. I was caught by surprise when I arrived to my cousin's 2-story house. And by that time, I have never been inside a 2-story house, so I felt so rich and over the moon when we arrived upstairs and got shown our rooms, because in Kiribati, we only had one big room, basically the lounge that everyone would just squeeze and sleep in. In addition to this, I was even more surprised when they put their dirty clothes in this big object called a washing machine to wash and clean them, because back home we didn't have this so-called washing machine. Instead, we had plenty of buckets to put the soap and water that my siblings and I would collect with our bare hands, and a bucket from the well. Back in the islands, it was very difficult and a hassle to get resources like soap and water. However, in New Zealand, we have different soaps for different needs, like soap for the washing, dishes, and body soap, etc., which also caught me by surprise, because back in Kiribati, we would sometimes have to use soap for the washing or body soap as an alternative soap for washing the dishes, as well as water. It was very difficult to have access to it sometimes because the well would dry up, which made it difficult for us to do many things, as it was one of the main resources we needed to get through the days. However, in New Zealand, all you had to do is twist a tap and you will have endless access to water, instead of scooping how many buckets of water a day to get through the days. The same goes with cooking and preparing our food. In New Zealand, you don't have to prepare anything. You just turn on the stove and wait for it to heat up. Whereas back in the island, we use olden stoves, which is not common nowadays. And on the days that we don't have a stove to cook on, our other option would be digging the ground while the kids go to the forest and collect firewood for an hour or however long we needed. But once we come back from collecting, the adults can finally start the cooking. Some of you might be thinking about what and how we eat. So yeah, we don't have plates. Or well, my family couldn't afford plates because we just don't have anything. We used the fattest leaves we could find, no spoons, just our hands. This is how low socio-economic we were. Oh, sorry, in other words, how poor we were back in the islands. Nowadays, the unfamiliar scenery of 4 walls surround me, from when I wake up to where I eat and where I sleep. In Kiribati, I will do all these things, but with the view from outside. From sunrise to midday and sunset, all of which I see in every direction from my house. When it rains here in New Zealand, I imagine the standard leaks of water dropping on my head as a memory from my childhood. Although I love my beautiful homeland, as a 6-year-old, the fear I had whenever a storm passed is vividly remembered because of how the ocean waters would invade my home. These are the many differences that I have identified since the first time I felt the unfamiliar yet comforting soils of New Zealand back in the cold winters of 2010. Thank you. Was that alright?